Good day, beautiful,
Yeah.
bountiful, beloved, immortal beings,
How's
and
it now? Good, honey?
good-looking people around the world. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good, and you have tuned in consciously and conscientiously to one of the most dynamic hours in an entire month. No matter how much is out there, I don't care if it's a guy named Rogan or Ferris or this one or that one who's broadcasting, there is hardly anything to compare to the hour spent together with these three magnificent, amazing, beautiful, bountiful, beloved beings and the personages of Dr. Diane Medved, Maura Sweeney, and Lori McDermott, and yours truly, your humble and honored host, Barry Shore, discussing something that is germane to everybody, whether you are in one, out of one, moving towards one, don't even like one. It's marriage. It's all about marriage. And marriage in every aspect of the word, literally the one that's consummated in some sort of ceremony, and the one that we all have with each other that in the sense of commitment. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. The ability to be committed to a relationship. And that means being able to utilize the two or three most important aspects of a relationship, which I will posit for the moment. I may be contradicted, and that's fine. And that is listening and sharing. Listening and sharing. And knowing that one can share with that person who is most close and be listened to rather than being belittled or worrying about sharing. And we're going to be talking about sharing and probably, yes, I think it's the most trying time that I've experienced anyway in American history for the past 20 years. And we've been through a lot in the past 20 years. We've been through 9/11. We've been through upheavals of, what do you call it, the Bush-Gore election, the Obama years, the Trump, whatever you want to call it, triumph, I don't know, and then now Biden, whatever it is. So it's been rocky, to say the least. And I hope we're all going to be like Rocky and make it through and knock out the opponent and be perseverant. But the issue at hand is how to work with political upheaval in the general population and probably even in one's life vis-a-vis that person or those people who are most close to you, i.e. your partner and family. As I said, we're deeply honored to have Dr. Diane Medved, wonderful Maura Sweeney, and maybe even Lori McDermott. She was here, she left. I hope she's going to come back. I may text her or may not. We'll just move forward, and while you're talking, I'll send her a note. But suffice it to say, I think, Diane and Maura, that you would agree with me that politics is at best, no, at the least, a loaded gun, and maybe at the worst, a cannon, or maybe an F-15 or a nuke, as President Biden would say, because the climate is given to contention rather than to civility, at least in my humble opinion at the moment. And we are in the midst of, for want of a better term, a cold civil war. The genius of it is because we are Americans and we really do want to adhere to the ideal of Americans, which means creating a society of ability to share, even with disparate views, very disparate views, but we want to keep it civil. So with that as a beginning, I would like to just posit the first question, which, by the way, is a distillation of, you ready for this? 327 questions on this particular issue. There's 3 or 4 that are going to be talked about. But this question is definitive of hundreds and hundreds of people. And the question is so simple. This is the way I am articulating it from many different people. And the question is, I am now married for, and fill in the blank, but it's usually more than 5 years. And by the way, less than 20. That's the range, at least what people told me. More than 5 years, less than 20. And we've never had a serious rupture when it comes to politics. It was either there or it was, okay, we're both involved, but we're not going to kill each other over it. And yet now things have changed. In other words, people are saying, in my marriage, something has changed. So I'd like to begin, Dr. Diane Madvid, as you usually do, the leadoff batter. And welcome to Lori. Please give us your insight, if you think, first of all, it's even true, and what could you offer as potential remedy in addition to, let's say, excuse the expression, the usual of listening. So you're on, kid.
I'm a little bit confused because the question is so complex, or maybe
Yes.
well defined. If it's a difference between the two people in the couple, it's a very different story than if it's between the couple and their surrounding family or their surrounding friends.
Okay, so that's my error. So let me do it, because that's going to be the next step. The first one will be with the couple, between the two significant others. The difficulty is that there's a rift occurring for lots of people. Real rift, not just, you think this, I think that. Seems to be a rift. I don't know if you're experiencing it, but I'm just letting you know.
In my marriage, I'm
No.
not.
Right.
I mean, if my husband were on the other side of the political fence, particularly regarding Republican and Democratic, or especially, if you don't mind me saying, former President Trump versus President Biden, or those two different sides, I think that it can be much more serious. And the reason why I noticed that, from my perspective, it looks different than it ever has, is because now people are more involved, and what is happening is a lack of respect for those who don't share their perspective. And in the past, I didn't notice this deeply entrenched lack of respect that permeates the relationship. It would be, oh, I'm for so-and-so, or I'm for that one, or there's this issue, or there's that issue. And people were not so deeply connected to it. I think that was true in 2016 in the election then, and I think it has only gotten worse, and it's culminated, or maybe hit the nadir when it comes to those kind of divisions, when we've had the COVID restrictions on it. And so that's added insult to injury. In other words, sometimes you've had to be with someone who now you have a lack of respect for, or a lowered amount of respect for. And so that keeps festering and coming up to the surface. So within a marriage, I think that it's very important that you have respect for the other person no matter what. You have to say, okay, maybe in the area of politics, I don't agree with him, but that does not mean I don't respect him. That does not mean that in all the other ways that we've shared our life, that I can now discount any of that. Instead, what I would suggest is that you celebrate those aspects of your life, and that you spend more time talking about those things, and put your disagreements in a package and put it on your mental shelf, and keep it separate from what the day-to-day relationship is, because otherwise it'll just keep bouncing in, and you won't be able to get rid of it. And all you can do is have a high sign to the other person if you start getting close to that topic, where you can point out, okay, time to put it on the shelf, or let's just go back to our normal relationship. Because if you can establish that your usual normal relationship is positive and loving, that is the norm for you, that we are usually in such sync and we love each other in so many ways, then let that be what permeates your home. That can be what is the norm for your children and for yourselves. Every morning, wake up and say, I love you because we've formed this wonderful family together. I love you because, and fill in the blank differently every day. There's always something new that you can appreciate about the other person. Even if it's just, they did the dishes last night. I woke up and the dishes were out of the sink. I really appreciate that. You care about our home. I am so grateful to you. Start off every day with something positive, and try and stay on the positive track and steer away from the things that have diminished any respect between you.
So I would like to begin to unpack what number of items that you said, and I wrote it down, and very much appreciate this overarching idea to begin. Respect. First of all, it's the basis of a marriage. Let's be blunt, right? It's the basis of the marriage. And now it's going to be, let's say, it was maybe before the foundation stone, it may now be the arch, that's which holding those two opposing areas together. Think of it as left and right and coming together with that arch stone. And that respect is the key, because without that, the building is going to fall, as opposed to a foundation stone. While the building falls down, it's still there. So that wonderful. And I think, yes, I had almost forgotten, and most of the people writing in threw away COVID, but you're right. Talking about some sort of fire burning or smoldering, COVID was fuel to the fire. It didn't help at all, and it did hurt, because in prior times you may have had, let's say, an argument or something, you could walk out, one or the other. But now people were sort of restricted, and that caused, well, we're in the ring together, I'm going to fight, because that's what people do when you're in the ring. So thank you. The other point is I love the imagery of the shelf. Put it in a box, put it on the shelf, which, by the way, is great for any time in marriage. The high sign, and to say, like you in political meetings, we used to say, I've been to a couple of school board meetings years ago, and we will, it's a common term, we will shelve that for the moment, right? We've all been to meetings. It gets shelved because that's what you can do in the heat of the moment. Unlike what we're seeing now with some of these YouTube videos that are going around where in Loudoun County and other places where people are attacking the school board and vice versa. So shelving is a great image. And the one I like the most personally is, yes, saying I love you to that other being on a regular basis. Now, if I had done the dishes, I would have been hit over the head with a broom or whatever heavy object could be at my. She doesn't like me touching it. But yes, the point is that being able to articulate a positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant message in the beginning of the day to that person who really is the essence of you. Because let's be blunt, nobody else can make happiness for you. But the other person that you have chosen to join forces with for your life is that being that you really love the most. And what could be better than saying that to the other person? So thank you, Diane. Articulating your love, using respect as the archstone, creating that imagery of putting something on a shelf and having a high sign. It could be scratching your nose. It's like in baseball. I don't know if you kids know, baseball, scratching, they do all kinds of things, but we don't know what they mean, but they mean something. So to the base runners, it's important because that's what we're doing. We want to come home, to use your analogy, Diane. We want to come home and make sure that the home is that place, that sanctuary. That's what it is. And yet, again, the sanctuary is, I think, being attacked. And I urge everybody to hear what Diane said in these specific ideas, not to just hear them as ideas, but hear them as practical tips and tools to be utilized. Thank you. Okay, wonderful, Maura, the happiness being. Please chime in. Unfortunately, our delightful Lori seems not to be able to connect with her devices, but
so I think she keeps freezing when she comes on. I know she's made numerous attempts, but I think her image gets frozen and hopefully she'll be on before the end.
Okay, I'm going to text her while you're speaking with your permission, okay?
Okay.
So,
I don't know, do you want to call or do you want me to answer? Or?
No, I'm going to just text her now.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
That question is so all-encompassing. It takes in so much. I don't know if you were seeing my eyes, and I'm going all over the place. It's a very good observation, I would say, that this whole idea of politics, they used to say years ago, 2 things you should never talk about with company. It's religion and politics. That has never become more the case, at least in the sense of politics today. Let's, religion aside. But as you were saying, we've been through a lot in the past 20 years, and you've seen that it's almost like there's this undercurrent that happens in our culture. I believe it's festering, but I believe it's being stoked along the way. And I think most of us are unaware of the fact that it is being stoked, and we need to kind of pull back from that. But I'll tell you, when I noticed some of this political animus beginning, and I remember it bothered me because I'm not I'm not a politically motivated person. I'm extremely equal in all things. I treat everyone the same. But do you remember as far back as when they were doing the Supreme Court confirmation? But it was prior to the confirmation of let me see, who was it?
Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh.
That was way out there. Clarence Thomas. That I felt embarrassed by it. See, you know, when you talk about we're getting to this place where people are being it's not only unkind, it's ugly, it's aggressive, it's mean-spirited. But I remember that for me was a very defining moment in the United States cultural and political history, that here we are looking at someone who's going to be potentially holding one of the most esteemed places in the land, and we're suddenly moving him into sexual language. Then I noticed it too, how could I not, with President Clinton. And I felt like we had stepped down to another level. And over the years, it seems to be getting worse and worse. My sense, though, and this is where I'm eventually going to get to the marriage section, is that we have this whole formatting going on in society where people are being not only invited, but they're being coaxed to choosing a side, identifying with a side, identifying with one thing. And there are demographics that are being played out there, some for just the women, some for the poorer class, some for, you know, the Black community. It doesn't matter. Or it doesn't matter. You know, you could fill in the blank. And what happens is that everyone starts to take ownership. And the belief is that I'm a victim where I am, so don't bother me. And I'm going to feel threatened with whatever idea you bring to me that isn't exactly as I need to believe it. And this is where, if you want to bring the whole thing back to politics, in a family unit, in our relationships, within our marriages, we need to decide whether or not we're going to be someone else's pawn. Meaning, the narrative is being put into us day after day, and then we buy into it as if it belongs to us, as if they were our own ideas. And we need to be able to make space and say this: I'm going to turn off a lot of these outside ideas. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to determine what I want to look at, when I want to look at it, but I'm not going to allow all of these external messages, and they come at us now daily. I don't care if people listen to the news on the right or the news on the left, but the animus and the attitudes and the attacking and the need to be right. My husband and I, because we weren't really watching TV, we got rid of it a couple of months ago. And I said to my husband, do you realize how much happy you are at night? Now, he might have been listening to a show he liked, but he was getting angry and agitated by that show. So the point being, we as adults, as married couples, as family members who want to create an environment of love and peace and goodwill, and we want to create and maintain a loving home life, we need to take stock of what's going on, and we need to set terms and framework for what's allowed in our home, what's allowed in our heart, what's allowed in our conversation, and we take authority over that rather than letting all these externals dictate our emotions and our mindsets, which of course, Diane, you would know this better than I. I've never even had a psych course in my life, but I do know human nature. And it's the idea of we become pawns of these special interest groups, and they could be there for a variety of reasons, just because they want to get more views. And we end up picking up and replaying their animus and their anger. And what does it do? It hurts our marriages rather than helping them. So the way out of it is saying, we're not letting this in our house, and we're creating our own space, and we're creating our own rules, if you want to call it that, the house rules. I know one thing I'll leave you with that kind of made me laugh. As you were, Barry, you were, I guess, putting a bow on some of Diane's comments, and you mentioned the baseball things that the people are doing. I always think about comms, that you could have in-home family comms. So people are like, that's enough. Like my husband, I saw the eyes. Sometimes it's under the table and it's the kick. But you could actually use it as something fun to say, don't go there. We're not going there.
This is so wonderful. I wrote down a number of points also I'd like to unpack and such. You did mention the Clarence Thomas hearings, and for good or ill, they are being replayed a lot these days for several reasons. Number one, because it was a watershed. Number two, because the current sitting member of the White House was one of the people responsible for attacking Judge Thomas. It's a fact. You can watch anything you want. Which is difficult because it did mark a change in direction. Prior to that, they had Justice Bork, and now there's a verb. He was borked, became Judge Thomas, but thank God he made it to the Supreme Court. I said, thank God for the country. Not everybody agrees, but so be it. This is really fascinating. You used the word pawn a number of times, and I just want to place it on the board, since we're talking, use that as an example, and I think we're going to be able to, yeah, we see Lori for a moment. Well, hopefully she'll stay there animated, not freeze, so just be there, Lori. But you use the word pawn, and I think you're absolutely correct. That is part and parcel of what large forces want to try and do. How many of them can be aggregated and move forward and used as fodder in the battle? And therefore, it's incumbent upon us as adults. And I am positing right now to everybody watching, listening, or who will listen to it in the future, that you're an adult. And I'm going to quote this wonderful man named Michael Medved. I am not a victim. You can choose to be either a victor or a victim. But it's a choice. You see, not choosing keeps you as a pawn. You're a victim by definition. To be active, you literally have to choose to become a victor. And the way you do it, as you said, Maura, is to create a framework, to create boundaries, to say, wait, this is our sacred space, as we just mentioned with Diane. It's a sanctuary. Because if you don't approach your life, in every aspect, by the way, and we're talking not just in the political thing now, which those forces are really impinging far more and with greater frequency and vocal shouting than previously because of the amplification by social media. These things are always around, but today the megaphone on the top of the mountain is bigger and more powerful. And it takes a great deal, in my humble opinion, to battle those forces because we're just small human beings, we think, in our own little marriage and world. How do you battle the forces of those things? I won't even mention their names, but those particular tech issues. So here's something I want to mention to you. Talk about having fun. So my wife and I were sitting at the table last night, and she brought up about chess. She was talking about pawn. And I realized, I said, oh my gosh, I have to write an article about how chess can't be played anymore. We have to have a transgender chessboard.
Wait, is that true?
No, I said it.
Get there yet?
No, but you see, because you can have a rook, a castle, that's sort of, neutral, but a knight, a bishop, a queen and a king, I don't know, maybe the queen wants to be a king, the king wants to be a queen, and vice versa. I could see that on our chessboard. I got you, checkmate. No, that's my queen. But you see, I say it with silliness and tongue in cheek, but I'm going to segue to the next question, unless we can get Lori in here. If we can get Lori in here to add a little bit of pepper. Lori, we see you, but we don't see you. We see you. Can you speak, Lori? Can you speak? Nice smile. I love those teeth. But, well, if you can speak, please say something. She's saying, I love you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, she said it. Okay. Practice saying hello. Just for a minute or so. Ready?
Yes, I can speak. Can you hear me?
Oh, we hear you now. Okay. So you're at a disadvantage, but you're at an advantage. The advantage is that you're coming in now. The disadvantage is you're coming in now, but you're now left us. Okay. Well, we'll try it again. Technology is great when it works, but she's in the car. The fact that this stuff even thinks it could work in a car or something. So let's make a segue to something that, and this is not a question, even though it's posed as a question in many different aspects, but these are things that just happened in the past 48 hours. And I want to bring it out because I think they're indicative of the battle. As you said, Maura, about pawn, Diane, as you mentioned, let's shelve it, but people are being coaxed to choose sides. There were two incidences that shake me to the core. I'm being very blunt. Shake me to the core. One is that there's an ad running somewhere. I don't even know if it's television, social media, but I saw it because a particular commentator I like mentioned it, that the NFL has announced, National Football League, for those people who don't know what the NFL is, National Football League, because we have people listening from all over the world. Isn't that nice? National Football League, which is football in America, which is hard-hitting, big guys wearing tights. I mean, it's funny when you say it like this, right? Big guys wearing tights playing on a football field. So you might think that they are gay. Well, that's what they say. NFL is gay. Now, I'm going on record to say something that some of you won't like, but I'm going to say it anyway. I am gay, not homosexual. In other words, the word gay is light and easy and fun. It used to be called the gay 90s. Well, actually, maybe, oh no, we're out of the 90s. Anyway, the point is that we've lost the language a lot today. And the language that is used is fraught with, how should we call it? Difficulties in the sense that it coaxes people into combat. In other words, anti-racist, racist, you're racist. So leave all that aside. The NFL, one of the most, how should we say it, stabilizing influences in the American pantheon of sport, certainly, is now really the national pastime like baseball used to be. Announces NFL is gay, whatever that means. But it's done now with this thing called Pride Month to say, we're together with everybody. And if you don't agree with it, well, you must be anti-gay or such. That's number one. Number two, and again, this touches me to the quick. I cry when I even think about it. I'm sorry to have to relate it, but you probably read about it or heard about it. In a spa in Los Angeles, which thankfully I no longer live in. Sorry, but it's true. I mean, we decamped and it feels better all the time. Small town called Henderson, Nevada, which Diane likes. And it's really very nice here. But a particular spa for women admitted a person, two-legged being, posing as a woman, but biologically he's male. He has the agenda of maleness, that which distinguishes a man from a woman. He was admitted to go into the spa and into the locker room, which had a range of females, all female, from kids to adult women. And an adult woman comes screaming out to the front desk and said, "What are you doing? There's a man here." And the woman behind the counter with a COVID mask still on, behind plexiglass, said, "Well, he says he's a woman." No, I don't even think she said he. This person says she's a woman. So I'm bringing these two current events within the past 48 hours to bear because I think they're part of the political spectrum. You see, when people send in their questions about politics, I think they mean these things as well. In other words, the attack upon the family structure is, in my humble opinion, malice aforethought. It's not just, well, gee, by the way, I think there's an agenda, but I don't want to use that as the stepping stone. But I'd like to pose it as a question is, how do you deal with this when it's a regular occurring situation, almost weekly, of things that push the envelope on what people in relationships think is normal? I'm speaking that way. I'm being very blunt. I'm a basic heterosexual guy. What I think is normal. I don't hate anybody if they choose to be a certain way, but not in public space and being forced. So I'm trying to frame it as a question, Diane and Maura. How do you deal with this as a couple if, in fact, the couple are seeing it from divergent perspectives? You hear what I'm saying now? I'm posing the question. One is more oriented and say, well, okay. And the other is staunchly saying, but no. How do you deal with that? Who goes first?
I'm so glad Diane always goes first.
Okay, Di, let's go.
No, you always say the most insightful things, so I'm always eager to hear you.
Get the ball rolling. So
Well, okay, right now I'm working on a book project called Wholesome. And one of the things that is involved in being wholesome is making distinctions. And when you talked about the world before, this mythic 20, 30 year ago world where definitions meant the same thing all the time, then we can make distinctions. And, you know, being Jewish, that's one of the basic ideas of Judaism, is that we make distinctions between day and night, between the regular week and the Sabbath, between male and female, between good and bad, between good and evil. We make those distinctions. And that is, frankly, I think what has made our culture cohesive. Without those common definitions, then we are, as you said, Barry, driven apart. Everything, people cannot agree on what things mean. And when you say gay, I don't think you'll be able to reclaim it, Barry, because I think it's already passed over into another definition that we can't just say, well, I'm gay, but I'm not homosexual. There are so many people who now make it okay to be offended by expressing one's opinion that I think we are really in our own little worlds as far as being able to fight it. If you say certain things in public, like on this webinar, you can get in trouble forever. Your career can be over.
Right.
And so I just don't think we can put that toothpaste back in the tube. But I think what we have to do as far as solving that problem is form our own microcosms, form our own little worlds where we set the definitions and we talk about that. We say we are making a distinction. There's, in our family, we say that there are boys and girls, that there is happiness, and we won't use the word gay because it means something else in the culture, but we will affirm happiness and joy, as you say, and we will have these set of values. Now, you mentioned the issue being, what if the two members of the couple are divergent on that? And I would say that most couples who decide to marry at that point when they do are not divergent. They marry usually with the same values because they want to commit to the other people, because they love the other person, because they admire the other person and respect him or her, them or they.
Oh, that's wait a minute, Dr. G. She just said something interesting, because that's part of also what's going on. But that may be the next question. Keep going.
Absolutely, but I don't find it convenient or accurate to use them and they, unless it's a matter of respecting someone else, in which case I'll do it, because I do respect all human beings and I afford them the opportunity to be who they would like to be. But in terms of my little world, I'm going to create that, and I'm going to choose my friends and my perspective based on, in my case, the Jewish Torah. And that's going to be my set of core values. And everyone can choose his or her set of core values. But what we have to do in this day of confusion is be explicit and talk to your partner. You talked about communication and how important it is, and listening and how important it is. And I think these are things that we have to talk about more. We have to discuss the fact that when someone says something that hits us wrong, it's hitting us wrong. Why? Why should it? Maybe it should. Maybe we're right to be feeling this resistance to a culture where everyone's the same and no one's different, where everything is accepted and nothing is taboo. I think that my husband, you talked about him saying that I'm not a victim. He has another phrase that he's been using lately, which is we should have gratitude and not guilt. We shouldn't feel bad about being a white person or, a woman or whatever we happen to be. We shouldn't feel guilt for these things. It is now being said that anyone who is white is automatically racist. I don't want to agree with that, and I don't agree with that. And right. I think people need to be evaluated as individuals. And I agree with Reverend Martin Luther King, who said we should evaluate each other by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And the content of one's character is what needs more discussion. is what we have to talk about. How are we going to live in this world where we are being judged perhaps uncomfortably? Are we going to be proud and have gratitude and not guilt? And that's something that we can work toward if we, make a sign and put it on your bulletin board and put it on your mirror in the bathroom. I'm grateful, not guilty. I'm going to work toward making my family cohesive and agreeing on our definitions of respect and love. And the more we talk about it and listen about it, as you said, Barry, the more we can solidify that as our own private worlds. And I hope more and more people make those microcosms so that they can then find each other and expand their private worlds.
Let me ask you, Diane, in forming these small worlds, are we therefore becoming more tribal?
Well, I think we already were tribal. I mean, I think now we're just expressing it more. And what's worse is that we're expressing more of the negative side to it instead of the positive side. It used to be, I'm a Catholic, or I'm a this, or I'm an Italian American. And now it's like, and you're a racist.
Right. By the way, by definition, what you just, this was wonderful.
Being proud of who you are, but at the same time, you shouldn't say, and you can't feel that, and you can't be that, and you can't this. It's bringing the negativity on top of the pride and smothering it in some cases.
So this is very powerful in that you just mentioned I think the key that's unlocking this is, let's say, Italian Americans reveled in the sense of October 12th, I think it was October 12th, Columbus Day.
They're bringing it back in certain towns.
Okay, good. So, but what happened was that Columbus Day was designed mostly in New York to celebrate the Italian American experience. There was no Columbus Day, let's say, 180 years ago and such like that. It was done because there's a large constituency in New York City that needed votes. And okay, so it had a basis of it, but it became, well, that's great. I mean, in 1492, didn't Columbus sail the ocean blue and come here and bring us European society? Well, no, because don't you know who he was and what he did? And that. So you're right. For want of a better term at the moment, one side is mired in negativity, uncovering the muck and mire. Another side is looking and saying, well, okay, that may be true. I mean, it probably is. And yet, look what we built. In other words, as you say, gratitude for the opportunity rather than the guilt. Because if you only look at what did happen, and there's a lot of things that we would not like to be part, we're not part of slavery, killing indigenous people. Was it part of American history? Yes. Was it part of the history of every single nation on the earth? Yes. As Maura pointed out, she's a student of human nature. Well, our better natures have been blossoming in the United States of America until recently, when there's a wall that's been hit. And again, I say this humbly, but I believe it's a malice aforethought from a certain political perspective that's most easily called Marxism, but leave that aside. It's just that's the wedge that is used to take people apart. So I love the working title of your next volume, Wholesome. And you're using the word distinction. Now, along with distinctions, which are quite correct, comes another word which I guess can never be used again. It's almost like gay, discrimination. To be a discriminating person, to have discriminating taste, used to be a sign of sophistication, of possibility. But no, you're a discriminating person. Ah, by the way, racist. You do believe in discrimination? Yes. Well, see, you just admitted you're a racist. So your points are so well taken. We are in, as you said, days of confusion. And the days may be spelled D-A-Y-S, and it may be spelled D-A-Z-E. This is a confusing time. By the way, we as adults, I older than both of you, but I find it difficult to be a young person, let's say 16 to 28 in today's environment. I think it would probably be very difficult to be in college now, to be out there and to have my own mind. I'm telling you, I don't know how I would do. It wasn't that easy when I was growing up because of all the pressures of drinking and things. Okay, fine. But those sort of stuff. No, this is getting down to, okay, I'm thinking first before I speak, but it's getting down to cross-burning style canceling of other people. In other words, the Ku Klux Klan doesn't burn crosses. Well, I'm sure they do somewhere. Burn crosses, but the left wing does burn crosses. They just call it something different. They're out for not just blood, but souls. Destruction is and I'll just leave that because I want Maura to speak. I mentioned recently on a show that we're coming up in July, so July 14th is Bastille Day. So that's the French Revolution. Well, the French Revolution was different than the American Revolution because in the American Revolution, we didn't kill fellow citizens that much. You know, people on the other side, war, okay. But in France, you had something called the guillotine, right? We all know what the guillotine is. Well, it was invented to do what? Chop people's heads off in an efficient manner. Who invented it? A doctor. It was the intelligentsia that caused most of the deaths and such. And I'm not linking Dr. Fauci to Dr. Guillotine, but you see that same kind of worship of the doctor. Dr. Guillotine says, wait a minute, if we're going to cut off somebody's head, it's inefficient and bloody and such to cut them one at a time. Hey, we can make this easy. Look at that, sharpen it. Dr. Guillotine. Thousands of people. So that's the difficulty we live. We live in with the most, excuse the expression, highly educated people directing the animus. That's hard. That's days of confusion, as you said, Diane. So on that high note, Maura, what would you say about the points that Diane was making in this whole idea of NFL as gay? And I agree with you. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle. Gay exists and is what it is. But that a biological man, as we see it, is now walking into, it's not a bad joke, you know, two people walk into the bar and this one says, you know, but he walks into the spa and they let him in because he says he's a woman and he's there. And if it happens once and it makes news, well, you can be assured it's going to happen in a high school. A high school.
It has. And there was a Supreme Court case that just came down yesterday where a transgender male now
Yeah, you have to think which one it is.
won the case whereby it was found that Supreme Court decided that he should be allowed to go to whatever bathroom agrees with his personal identity. That was his physiology.
I'm sorry, you're saying, I thought I read it a little differently, but I want to say it again. So I thought it was that he can go to either a men's room, let's call him a man saying he's a woman. He can go to a man's room or a bisexual room, but he can't go into a woman's room.
No, the ruling was he can go into any room that he claims is his proper.
Well, then it's over. Hello, it's over.
It's over. Yes, that's correct.
It's over.
It's over. In other words, your chosen identity is what will be the determinant, not any kind of physiology.
So this, I want to just continue without going into dialogue because it's all the three of us. But one of the things that has been disturbing me for a while already, I made a video about this before the election, months and months and months ago. I said transgender was going to be the wedge issue because it may be, in quotation marks, okay in a public school setting, but imagine this now in a Catholic school where it's, let's say, a boys' Catholic school or a girls' Catholic school, and a male member, excuse the pun, of the girls' Catholic school walks into the girls' bathroom, or in a Jewish private school where we have boys and girls together and one guy, and you can't, what can you do? I mean,
and that was interesting about this case was that the school, the child is now a graduate, but in any case, so it doesn't apply to him personally. But at the time, the school offered him his own personal private bathroom to use. so that it wouldn't be an issue for other people, and he could go into his own private bathroom. And he didn't want that. He wanted to fight for the ability to go into whatever bathroom he felt represented his own identity.
Right, and I think part of the case was that I might be in a very far distant part of the school and have to walk all that way, and that was one thing.
Sure.
And then it came out, see, these are civil rights issues. They're using the same argument of separate but equal. No,
Well, what's part of this anti-discrimination is that gender is a continuum rather than binary, and saying that one is non-binary is hip, and saying that one is cis, meaning cisgendered, means you identify as the gender of your birth, your physiology. That's not considered quite as she nowadays.
So Maura, what say you on this idea of distinctions? And again, put it in the marriage context, you and your husband, and I'm just going to make this up, so we're not going to say you and your husband, the couple next door who are biologically male, biologically female, where they have divergent opinions about this. In other words, Diane's mentioning the Supreme Court case. Maybe one of them says, well, that's great. And the other one says, you're out of your mind. Can you just shelve that? How do you deal with that?
You know, it's amazing that what started out as simple, politics has moved into a realm of culture. And in our case, we could call it American culture. And it is encroaching into every aspect of our lives to the point where it's in our homes. I almost want to go in reverse and say this. And this would be speaking about America and outwardly, but also inwardly. What about our core values? See, we pick up on everyone's offense. People get triggered over everything, and it could be something so small. Now, in the case of this young man who you said graduated from school, who was offered his own bathroom, so that the vast majority of children could be fine where they were using their facilities, but this school was willing to make a special place for this person to use their bathroom, and they didn't want to. This is where the encroachment and special interests come in, and then suddenly a decision now has to affect everyone's life. The media piles it on, and now we're all confronting something that we know is different from what we've ever had before, and now it's our new norm. But I want to think of a couple of words here. I heard only the other day, and I'm sure either one of you could correct me on this. There is something known as the norm. When something is normative, I think I heard the other day, it usually represents, on average, 62% of the population. That's considered normative. Am I right? Sound right? What we are now doing, we've moved to an economy, a culture, a society where we are no longer dealing with the norm and what is normative. We will choose one unusual person for whatever reason that may be, in whatever area that may be. Mm-hmm. And suddenly that one person takes precedence and becomes oh my goodness, I want to say like a flashpoint for people's emotions, because it becomes an emotional issue. We take up either for or against that person as a victim or as a problem. And there we go. We already picked it up. So I would say, in pulling back a little bit, forgetting about all these things and coming up with what are our core values. And this probably goes back to what Diane said. We used to know what our core values were. Now, I grew up as Roman Catholic, and we knew our 10 commandments. We knew like certain things are okay, certain things were not. But all of society you didn't have to go, you didn't have to go to church, or you didn't have to go to synagogue.
Right.
We just knew we had core values, but beyond that, of right and wrong. But we also had a sense of the core values of America. Now, when I believe it was Diane mentioned earlier, I'm 63 right now. I can remember so well Martin Luther King. And I really, when I think about that man, I so appreciate what he brought to our culture, because he did not make civil rights about the color of the skin. He made it about seeing one another through the eyes of character. The character can serve as our core values, not one person person's desire to be treated special because they're different from the other 62 people in a group of 100 and they're the one and only. And somewhere we need to reclaim, and maybe this is going back to our own environments, but to reclaim even in our own lives, in our own space, and wherever we go, that I'm looking at other people through a sense of values. I will always respect you, but I would also expect that you would respect me as well, or expect that you would respect me as well, and live that way. Live that way within our marriage. Live that way in our home with our children. Live that way with our neighbors. Not picking up everybody else's acts to fight. And I once read a book, and I think it was The Four Agreements. And this actually disturbed me when I read it. There was a belief in their credo that said, the more you give something its attention, the more it grows. Basically.
Say it again. You're fading out. Say it again, Nora.
Okay. There was something I remembered several years ago, and I believe it came from the book called The Four Agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be getting it from another book, but this was the whole idea. The more attention you give to something, the more it grows.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to decide again, are we going to be a pawn of what our society is now telling us is the new normal? Or are we going to decide as adults what our personal values are and not worry about all these other things and then live and occupy within our value system? And then we start creating in our marriage, our home, our family, our community, where we work, that we are people who have a common set of values where we respect ourselves, we respect others, but we are not going to make one person special over another because this is the flavor of the week or the issue of the day that we need to get behind and galvanize. And somewhere in there, we can reestablish what it is that matters. And I always go back to character. And I think a lot of these things people are arguing about today have zero to do with character. It's an operational program designed to move us away from our joy, our happiness, our peace, our value system. And we end up ultimately with a group of very confused people who don't know what they believe in or why. And then we have a breakdown of society. So I say it's incumbent upon all of us to take some time, pull away and say, hey, what is important to me? What do I value? And let's say I might disagree with someone, but it doesn't mean I'm going to fight with someone. Everyone has their space, but I'm not going to be joining your civil war.
So let me, if I may, this is so wonderful because in the time together, we've touched on very important ideas, phrases, comments. Diane began with the word respect. Maura brings it full circle with the idea of respect. I'm just going to posit something for the moment because I think that this idea that we are articulating vis-a-vis respect comes more, I hope I'm wrong, from a conservative point of view rather than a liberal, not liberal, but left-wing point of view. I'll say why. For instance, in a group that, let's say, we as adults and conservative adults say, well, we're going to respect each other's opinions. I don't agree with you. I think you're wrong. I think you don't have the right information. I can say that to you, don't disrespect you, but there's an entire group of beings today that say, I can't even listen to you. I won't listen to you. I don't respect you because you're a Nazi, you're a racist. In other words, I'm sorry to say it like this, that they don't know what it means even. Most people don't know what it means to be a Nazi. Thank God. They can use the words. They don't even begin to understand what a Nazi truly is, or a racist, what the racist truly is. They're demented people. They think they mean that, but they can't. But there are phrases out there. And by the way, to go back to something, I'm going to say two things. Again, my wife is a bellwether for lots of wonderful things. So she was born in Thailand. She's Thai. She refers to herself as Asian. You know, you can't do that now. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The other way. She refers herself to as Oriental.
That's a bad word.
No, that's the no today. She said, I am Oriental and I'm proud of it. Because that's people were Oriental. Used to be called in any textbook or any book on geography, the Orient. Not anymore. It's Asian Americans. So I said, you go with the program, honey. She said, no, I'm an Oriental. And so when I've said that to people, they say, no, you can't say it. But that's the level of, it's not even discourse. When you say the wrong word,
Censorship. It's called censorship.
said yes. So with censorship, you can't have respect. See, we are articulating and we're saying we like distinctions. We like people to be discriminating. I wish we had on here other people who could say, you're out of your mind, you people, I'm leaving you, because that's what would happen. I can't hear this. Oftentimes it happens. But what we're articulating, and for the many, thank God, thousands of people that like listening to us, most of them are agreeing that, yes, we need this in civil society to be civil, because without it, there will be a breakdown and it will become a dystopian society, not the American vision of utopian society, which is, okay, people don't have to agree with each other, but at least we can live in the same neighborhood. We may go to barbecue together. I don't care. You don't eat meat? Fine, you eat this, I'll eat that. Doesn't matter. We can congregate. Or as my wife says, the new term is we can conversate. You know that one? We can conversate. Part of this began, by the way, as a very tiny little situation years and years ago with the great peanut disruption. Remember peanuts on a plane? So because there was, I guess, something called an aversion to peanuts or some sort of
it's a deadly allergy.
Deadly allergy. So peanuts have been served for decades and readily given. So instead of the one or two people that may have it and therefore say, no, not going to have any peanuts. Nobody can have peanuts anymore.
That's true.
So and by the way, it may have been even the right thing to do. I'm making that program. For instance, smoking was on every airplane. Oh, gosh, thinking about going on the airplane with smokers, it happened, right? You remember having to put in the back of the plane one time because of late boarding. I could barely breathe, especially not just overnight flight, long distance flights. But you wouldn't even think of smoking on an airplane today. So maybe the peanut thing was correct. But the point is that you're saying, Maura, is that because of a unique situation, we're going to alter what we call society and core values. It may be that you said, Diane, that the genie is out of the bottle vis-a-vis such things in the language of and sexuality. It may be, unfortunately, that it may be that way also when it comes to core values. In other words, it's incumbent upon us as adults and people who speak with and influence other adults with books, with blogs, with webinars, with whatever we do, as Michael does, gratitude versus guilt, to continually to emphasize that in the way we speak, the way we think, the way we act, with certainly our dearest, most coveted, most loved, beloved being, our partner, and making sure that there's some modicum of harmony, even in the midst of true disagreement. Because, hello, we're humans. There's going to be disagreement. But as Diane said, I love the image. Excuse me, I'm putting that on the shelf. Thank you. It's up there. I can't barely reach it. Okay, that's where it is for the moment. And to make sure that arch stone in the middle between the left and the right, because that's what's happening, between the left and the right is really secure, that we do have a country, because thank God we have children, we have grandchildren. And to think if it continues in this same rampant, very fast-paced movement towards disruption, what will it be like in 50 years? There will always be a geographic place called America. May not be called the United States of America, but it'll be a geographic body called America. But what will it really be? Will there be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? It's that's by the way, I have a deep appreciation. I hope I expressed it in the beginning. I'm saying it again to Diane, Laura, Lori, who not be able to join us today, for your time, your thoughts, your insights, your energy. People love this webinar. You got to know this makes a difference to people. You get comments all the time. Most of them love it. Some of them say you're crazy. People are crazy. But the point is that people doing something, they're involved. So this is really big. And again, I appreciate you very much, and I trust you like the process also. And we'll continue again 1 month from today, whatever the date is, last Wednesday in the month. And here I am in the middle of the desert, triple digit figures, and it rained again today. And it was just a drizzle, but it rained, and it was wonderful. I was singing. So did I send you my little singing there? Okay, good. But and if anybody else who wants it out there, you can just let me know and we'll send it to you. So with a closing statement, Diane or Maura, would you like to say anything in packing it up?
Just really, really quick, I just wanted to say you expressed doubt that our country would continue under its previous and founding principles. And I just want to express optimism on that, because I believe that people come to America with a belief in it, and they're still trying to come to all our borders. They come from all over the world because they believe in us, and they believe in themselves being able to succeed and reach their potentials here. And I think that's the one thing that sets us apart. This country was founded on the idea that each individual is endowed with their own creativity, their own special rights, and their own abilities that can be developed. And I think that if we keep that in mind, that this is the one place on earth that has proven to be blessed, as my husband says, God's hand on America, then we can be optimistic and go forward and realize our values are still there. They're the same values that the founders started with, and that they will continue in 50 years and 100 years and far longer.
Amen. I agree with her. And Laura?
I love that, Diane. I'm so glad you said it. Can I add a little something too?
Please.
Not such a little thing. We started with politics. We're talking about marriages, and we go all the way to where we are today. And I agree with Diane that we were known as the United States of America. And I want you to think about the analogy. We can have a united marriage, and within our united marriages and our united homes, where we do establish those values and those virtues, we can reclaim and expand upon the original founders' intents for this nation. We don't have to become victims of a social engineered program to get us to be against or at odds with everyone else. We can actually take it back, take stock of ourselves, take stock of our families. And you know something? We oftentimes are looking for the answer out there. And I always remember, we are the answer. We become the very thing we're hoping to see. So what a great place to start. Unity in the marriages, unity in the home. We work it out to our communities, and here we have a happy United States of America.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her with love that is flowing from above. I agree with you both, and I am heartened by what you say, as of the many people that are listening. And may we continue to flourish and go forth, because we're instituting and living the values that were passed on to us. Thank you, and thank you, wonderful Diane, Laura, and Lori in absentia. Make it a great one, everybody. Bye now.
Bye.
Truly tremendous. Thank you.